Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Finovate podcast. We are talking today to our FinovateSpring Best of Show winners. This is going to kick off our Best of Show interview series. And joining me today, we have Rob Frohwein, a co-founder of Keep Financial. Rob, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on, Greg, and thrilled about the outcome of the show.
Yeah, well, congratulations on your Best of Show win. Obviously, that's a real feather in the cap. Now, it had been a little while since you've been on the Finovate stage, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we jump right into that, let's take a couple seconds and just give the audience a quick overview on yourself and what Keep Financial is all about.
Sure. Quick overview on me. Prior to starting Keep Financial, I co-founded Cabbage, which presented on the Finovate stage many times. Cabbage is small business fintech doing something very different with Keep. What Keep does is it enables employers to implement what we call vesting cash plans, which is a new compensation technique that enables an employer to issue what's essentially a retention bonus, but the cash is provided on the front end of some period of time, and I can give examples. But there's an ongoing obligation of the employee to stick around the company for whatever the vesting period is. And once they hit that vesting period or vesting periods along the way, that portion or all of the debt that they owe for getting that retention bonus up front disappears. So that's what Keep Financial is. It's a new form, what I call embedded fintech 2.0.
Yes, I mean, it's a really interesting idea, very creative. And I think, I would encourage anybody who's watching this or listening to this to go and check out the video of the demo itself that they did on the FinovateSpring stage, and you'll get a good, quick insight into how it works. But for our purposes today, let's get into the weeds a little bit. How exactly does Keep work?
Yeah, so what we do is we work with employers. An employer will come and track us down and say, we're interested in providing this benefit to our employees. We'll work with them, and they'll basically input the employees into the system that will receive a Keep bonus, which is a portion of cash that's issued under the vesting cash plan. They'll outline who the employee is, the amount of it, what the vesting schedule is. It can be a variety of vesting schedules, so it can be 4 years on a cliff basis. That means it vests at the end of 4 years. It can be 2 years, half of it vests in the next 2 years, quarterly or monthly, basically whatever the employer wants. Once they complete that, we contact the employee. They come in, they confirm their information, set up their bank information, and away we go. We fund them, and they continue to execute on their responsibilities. And the reason why this is so powerful for companies to implement is it's a much better way to recruit and retain employees, because that opportunity to get a little bit more capital on the front end of some period of time, whether it's the beginning of your employment or some other inflection point in your life, allows you to achieve personal goals that you might have thought would have taken you, many more years to accomplish. So the goodwill that's associated with allowing an employee to accomplish that early on, it's really associated with the employer, and then they'll execute on that relationship over that period of time. And it'll stop this constant churn. You'll be able to get, keep teams together longer, happier. You'll be more productive and, frankly, way more efficient. Probably be able to employ many fewer people if you use our system.
Yeah, I mean, it really is fascinating. And I think one of the things that I really like about it is this, you get this kind of camaraderie, this sense of trust, that the employee and the employer are in it together, that the employer recognizes this is about, building their employees' quality of life. It's about giving them tools that they need to go be happier and ultimately more productive people. And so I think it's a really fascinating idea. Obviously, it's something that resonated really strongly with the Finovate audience. Can you talk a little bit about where the idea behind Keep came from? How did you come up with this?
Yes, so it's one I had a lot less. It's not the idea didn't come to me, but I actually had a direct experience with this. My hair was a lot darker then. It was about 20 plus years ago. And I was practicing law. I was a corporate lawyer in Atlanta, Georgia, practicing law, and I represented a young physician who had just graduated from Harvard Medical School and accepted a job in a rural community in South Georgia. And so this person never had a connection with a rural community or one in the South. And I wondered, why did they do that? And that's because the local health system had given them, given that person a several $100,000 employee forgivable loan. So they basically said, here's this money now. And if you stay here for 4 years, it's forgiven. And he was about to have a child, needed a house, wanted to buy a minivan, wanted to set up a 529 plan, join the country club and all that good stuff, and accepted. And I thought, in current day, I thought, what if I could take that concept, not several $100,000, but really make it work for any employer, anywhere, eventually internationally, and allow them to provide this kind of benefit to their employees. And the use cases just started just piling up, and everybody got very excited about it. And I went, oh yeah, this is the next thing to do. So I was very excited about that, leveraging past skills of Cabbage, as well as a real focus on recruiting and retention, which we had at Cabbage.
Yeah, so I got to ask, how did the story with the doctor end up? I mean, did he stay there many productive years and set up shop? I mean, do we know, or are we going to be left hanging?
I know that he was there for the 4 years. I don't know whether he
Okay.
stayed beyond that, but the fact of the matter is, what's nice about this is, you know, if for some reason an employer provides this to an employee and for whatever reason doesn't work out, that unvested portion will come back to the employer.
Yeah.
And you know, that's important. So it's actually a relatively low risk way to really overachieve in the area of recruiting and retention.
Yeah, I think that risk piece is a really crucial aspect. I mean, the incentive is there, the carrot is sort of there, but it's ultimately not going to cost the employers too much here to put something like this, which again is why it's so fascinating and why I think it resonated with the Finovate audience. Now, you talked a little bit about kind of your own experience here. Obviously, in the fintech industry, retention of your best employees is a real challenge. I think this is pretty well documented. And I'm sure this is something that you encountered during your time with Cabbage. But you know, as we're talking about this, this really isn't just for fintech companies, is it? I mean, this is something that could be a good fit for any number of companies. Is there kind of a way that you look at, way you define companies that would be a good fit for Keeps technology?
Yeah, it's a broad market. One of the reasons I really liked it, but you know, anytime when you see a huge market, you've got to figure out how you're going to focus and where you're going to market it to. But really a good solution for companies that in many cases have more than a couple of hundred employees. Sometimes if they're smaller than that, it would be those that really have specific individuals they're trying to retain over the long term. But I really break it down. There's a variety of industries. So you can think about technology, you can think about financial services for sure, fintech. Healthcare is a huge use case. Retail is a big issue. So we had one fast food chain that basically said, look, we're having problems hiring people to work at the cash register and you know, be short order fry and everything. And they said, if we could just give folks a $1,500 keep bonus and ask that they work at least 20 hours a week over the next year, we'd be happy to forgive it. It'll allow us to so like the use cases are kind of plentiful. So industry use case, which I just talked about, and then stage. So it can go anywhere from, you know, earlier stage companies all the way up to very mature public companies. So we're trying to figure out, we want to, this next phase, which is our first phase of the company since its launch, is to demonstrate a broad market applicability. And that's what we're really doing.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that this is still a very early stage company. I mean, I'm sort of used to thinking of you as, you know, still as part of Cabbage, which you built up to a ridiculous degree, and now you're kind of back at the beginning again. So this is, as we kind of talked about, this was sort of your first coming out party, which was really cool, and appreciate you bringing it to the Finovate stage. This is what we love to see. But as people are listening to this, that's a really important piece just to keep in mind. And I want to go ahead and talk about, you know, so we talked about the challenge with retention. We know it's a problem in fintech. And I think what you did on the stage really resonated with people on kind of a personal level. That's one of those challenges of being up there at Finovate. You have to reach the audience in a way that they really understand what you're talking about. What do you think about Keep is really attractive to the financial institution community, you know, those bankers in the audience? Because clearly it resonated with them. And I think it's beyond just sort of them seeing themselves being able to use it. But what is the opportunity for financial institutions here?
All right, so it falls into, and you pretty much referenced a couple of categories. One, is that everybody, I mean, if you think about how much time you spend recruiting and trying to retain employees and dealing with challenges when employees leave and they leave a hole in the organization or they recruit others, I think we all collectively spend, somewhere between 20 and 40% of our time doing that. My guess is 50 or 60% of that time could be eliminated if we had really good recruiting and retention efforts. So everybody has felt the pain. Everybody has been exhausted trying to recruit people, and even further exhausted trying to pull their hair out, trying to figure out how to deal with, what they were supposed to accomplish that they can no longer really effectively accomplish because people disappeared. So I think that's part one. I think part two is this is really embedded fintech 2.0. And so I think I think in doing this, like the way I define embedded fintech, everybody thinks about putting lending at the POS or embedding payments, with an ISV, or something along those lines, like very great use cases and totally makes sense and help you keep your customers close and generate some additional revenue. But what else can fintech do? And I really believe you could take fintech and outsource it, if you will, to different types of systems and situations to solve other issues. And that's what Keep really does, which is we allow you within your compensation system a new tool that allows you to improve the likelihood of you achieving the objective that your compensation system set out to do, which is to recruit people and to retain people. If you had no compensation system, you'd have no employees. And so as the concept goes, you have that in place, and it's really been demonstrated to be right now pretty ineffective. Stock options are not an effective tool for retaining people anymore. In good times, other companies are offering more than you're offering. In tough times, employees really don't see the value in them. So how are you going to keep people interested?
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think really when you look at fintech as a whole and kind of the world of finance, it's really uniquely suited to provide incentives for the kind of behavior that you want to inspire in people. And so if you as an employer want to keep your best employees around for longer, you think, well, how can I go and do that? And frequently the answer is going to be, there's going to be a financial incentive somewhere. And this is really where fintech can become very interesting, because you look at the way that you can kind of deploy that financial incentive, the way that you can be really strategic and really targeted with it through the technology that we have right now, the ability to kind of take an individual and say, hey, here's what we're offering you as a person, is something which is really unique. We have time for one more question, and I want to go to something a little bit more frivolous now. We've talked a couple times about you being on stage previously with Cabbage. It's been a little bit since you were up there on the Finovate stage, maybe 5 years, maybe more. Was it difficult to get back into the swing of things from a demo standpoint, or did you find that old muscle memory kind of came back really quickly?
Well, two things. One is we launched Cabbage at Finovate in May 2010. So if you go to your archive videos at finovate.com, you will see May 2010, Catherine Petralia and myself going on. And we went on. I was so nervous. There was like 550 people in the audience. I remember I was so nervous. I had never done this before. We go up behind the stage, and there's Aaron Patzer, who famously started Mint.com and had recently sold it to Intuit. And he basically I go, oh, great, I have to present after you. He was fintech guy at the time, but still is a great guy. And he goes, don't worry, I'm not very prepared, which Catherine responded to, yeah, but you've got a lot more latitude than we have. So that was the first one. It worked out. We survived. We grew the company.
Yeah.
It felt great. I actually felt more relaxed coming up on stage this time. Had a few butterflies, but I would say relative to some of the other times, I felt pretty good and comfortable and at home. And that's a lot of that is thanks to you guys and how you get everybody prepared for it and how you set it up. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. And I certainly appreciate it. Our goal is just to put you in a position where you can get the most out of it up there. And I think it is probably worth anybody listening to this, go back and watch some of those early cabbage videos if you can find them.
Maybe
You
not
can
that
look
one.
at maybe
I'd
give
be
them a
okay
pass
with
on the
giving.
first one. Maybe check in on some around 2012 or so when you've kind of got it ironed out a little bit more.
I'm
No,
with
but
you on that
it's
one.
a finicky thing, that 7 minutes up on stage. Clearly, you understand the format well, you understand the market well. I'm really excited to see what the future holds for Keep. Congratulations again on your best of show win. And thanks again for joining me for this conversation.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Take care.
You too, buddy.